By 1945, the Nazis were on the run. The Allies were flying high and about to roll over Germany's flat western borders. But in the deep southern heartland of Hitler's Reich loomed the threat of the unknown. Fears grew of a last-ditch Nazi fightback in the Alps.
In terms of a defense, it was an ideal place to defend yourself. This was high mountains, very difficult terrain. How could you wage a war with tanks there? Almost not possible. Very low experience from the Allied side to wage a war in this mountain region. A lot of experience from the German side, so a lot of elite troops there. They knew there were a lot of SS troops in Austria, so uncertainty.
Amid such uncertainty came evidence of the Western Allies' worst fears. Neutral Switzerland bordered part of the German Alpine region. The American intelligence chief in Bern, Alan Dulles, had a grim report. It suggested that a fanatical elite was massing in the mountains. A hardcore led by those with death heads on their caps. The merciless SS would spearhead a desperate guerrilla war from an Alpine fortress.
It was the very fact that the Bavarian and Austrian mountains seemed to lend themselves so well to guerrilla warfare that this horrible idea, because it represented a nightmare for Allied military strategists, that this horrible idea started to gain currency.
The horrible idea was an ultimate nightmare for the advancing Allies. An Alpenfestung, or Alpine fortress, extending into northern Austria. Defended by thousands of troops, steeling themselves for a final do-or-die fight for the fatherland. Their fingers on the triggers of an arsenal of secret weapons hidden in crags and crannies.
At this time, in January 1945, they didn't know what was going on when they entered Germany. And they were taken by surprise by the Battle of Bulge, was a German counterattack in December 1944. And they didn't expect that. So the question was, yes, we have won the war. This is clear. But, I mean, are we able to cross the Rhine? Are there some secret weapons still? Is there somehow a secret counterattack prepared? So it was all uncertain.
Uncertainty and fears of so-called wonder weapons were understandable. The Germans had already developed ballistic missiles and jet planes. And other, more fearsome, more destructive horrors were on Nazi drawing boards.
What the Allies decided to do was to be prudent, to assume, given Hitler's nature, given the fanaticism of the SS and the fact the SS probably controlled the German state by then, to prepare for the worst. The Alpine Redoubt was the worst. It was the worst case scenario that anyone could imagine, and they felt they had to prepare for it.
Some tunnels and bunkers had already been excavated in existing salt mines. Even today, the crumbling remains of the would-be Alpine fortress are well hidden. One tunnel complex near the Austrian city of Salzburg was to be the command center of the Nazi Alpine fortress. Such tunnels were also used to build planes and rockets, as Allied bombing reduced conventional German factories to rubble.
This is where, according to the plans for the Alpine fortress, the high command of the SS would have been situated, led by Himmler. Himmler's documents in Berlin were already packaged and addressed. The complex extends over 6,000 square meters, and the plan was for 22,000 square meters.
As well as bunkers below, the Germans seemed to be amassing manpower above. Senior Nazis gathered in the Alps. SS Chief Heinrich Himmler's deputy, Ernst Kaltenbrunner moved back to his native Austria, to a villa above the spa town of Altausee. Himmler named him commander-in-chief of all forces in southern Europe. He would coordinate the Nazi fightback from a region he knew well.
He was somehow in charge of the secret police and the political police, so he was quite a very important figure in the SS world.
Another influential Austrian SS man was lurking in the Alps. The presence of SS commando leader Lieutenant Colonel Otto Skorzeny was yet more evidence of an Alpine fortress.
Otto Skorzeny was Austrian by birth and was a weird figure with almost no military training, but he was very clever to establish himself in the SS world. At this time of the war, in April 1945, he was in command of what we call the Special Forces, the SS Special Forces, the command units. And he was able to withdraw two of his command units from the Eastern Front to Austria. And this should have been the core of the defense force of the Alpine fortress.
The region bordering southern Bavaria and Austria was already riddled with old mining tunnels. Some of them were extended and used to build weapons. Schwaz is the site of old Austrian silver mines near the German border. One shaft runs deep into the mountain and a haunting Nazi ruin. The dank, dark subterranean world is usually off limits to visitors. 2 kilometers inside the mountain, a broken steel and concrete shell of an underground aircraft factory is slowly rotting away. Bits of rusting metal lie scattered across the stony floors. The corroded remains of aircraft parts, abandoned before workers had the chance to put them together.
The whole complex is in entirely the same state as it was when it was left, following the detonation at the time. And the workers had only just left the complex. Everything is still standing on mounting racks. It really is unbelievable.
Deep underground, far from the threat of Allied aerial bombing, the old mining tunnels were ideal places to build weapons. Including a new generation of planes die-hard Nazis hoped would repel the Allies rampaging into the Reich. These are the remains of one of the first jet fighters in the world, the Messerschmitt 262. Almost 1,500 were built, but only a few hundred flew in combat. The Germans had also developed a jet-powered bomber.
Hermann Goering, the head of the Luftwaffe, had dictated a requirement to the aircraft industry that he wanted this 1,000-kilometer aircraft, 1,000-kilometer range that could fly at 1,000 kilometers an hour and carry 1,000 kilograms of bombs. And at the time, it was a huge, very, very challenging requirement for any manufacturer to meet.
German engineers overcame another great challenge and had developed the world's first long-range ballistic missile, the V2. SS chief Heinrich Himmler was one of many top Nazis who had visited the V2 testing facility at Peenemünde. More than 1,000 V2s were fired at Britain. They were the pinnacle of rocket technology at the time, flying some 80 kilometers above the Earth. V2s sparked fear and devastation. They are estimated to have killed almost 3,000 people. Launched from mobile ramps, V2s were another potential threat from an Alpine fortress. And there was another, even greater horror emerging from Nazi drawing boards. A longer-range version of the V2, dubbed the America rocket. Such horrors were the brainchild of Nazi engineers like Werner von Braun. With Allied invaders closing in around them, in early 1945, they were redirected south to the so-called Alpine fortress.
Von Braun was ordered to go to the Alps, so we received an official order to leave Peenemünde. So we didn't flee, but it was requested that we go to the Alpine fortress in the south of Germany. The original plan was, which we had never believed, to continue building V2s down there.
The Nazi Germans may have had a technological advantage, but they were vastly outnumbered by conventional planes, tanks, and troops. German airfields and factories were overrun. In central Germany, the advancing Allies found the remains of another wonder weapon, a menacing bat-like jet fighter bomber partially made of wood.
Looked sexy and looked efficient and fast and menacing. It was a unique configuration and a unique shape, advanced technology, jet-powered interceptor, faster than anything the Allies could field.
The Horten H-9 was also covered in carbon and plywood, making it more difficult to detect by radar. It was perhaps the world's first stealth-type aircraft. The Horten brothers hoped their plane would eventually carry a 1-ton bomb.
If the Horten 9 could have been put into production, perhaps even fitted it with rockets, which unguided rockets that they could use have used against the bombers, I think all these things are quite possible. And fielded in significant numbers, it would have been certainly faster than the Allied piston-driven airplanes, and it could have had a significant impact on the air war.
Conventional planes were still winning the war for the Allies, but the possibility of a German counterstrike from the Alps forced a change in tactics. Potential threats like Hitler's rocket engineers had to be stopped from reaching the mountains in the south.
General Eisenhower, because of his fear of a final Nazi campaign in the mountains of southern Bavaria and Austria, decides to cut Germany in half to prevent troops, Wehrmacht and SS troops from the northern part of Germany to go south to Bavaria and Austria.
Eisenhower changed the direction of his main thrust and directed a spearhead south towards the Alps.
He doesn't want to see them filling the mountains with material, ammunition, more troops. So Allied strategy is directly affected. How long would it take to defeat 300,000 Nazis armed to the teeth in the mountains? No one knew.
The rocket engineers from the Baltic coast evaded the Allied advance and made it to the Alps. They were a vital asset to be protected in the barracks of the Gebirgsjäger, or mountain troops.